How's it going, everyone? I'm Max and welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to be answering the age-old question. Does size really matter? Now obviously we're talking about glass tips and nothing else in this video, you naughty fuckers. Let's get right to it, see how they all compare and see what the pros and cons might be to using a different size. Now here we have a 6mm and an 8mm tip and a 9mm and a 10mm tip. If you're rolling a smaller joint with maybe a gram or less, then you might be fine using a 6mm tip. But if you're rolling anything upwards of a gram, I would definitely recommend going for an 8mm or higher, even getting into those 2-3 gram joints, maybe using a 9mm or a 10mm tip. Now the reason I say this is because if you rolled up a joint with the 6mm tip, it would look like an okay joint if you're just using like a standard 0.5 worth of weed. However, if you then roll up that same 0.5 into a 10mm tip, that it just looks like a tiny little chode. So either side of me, there should be two different videos. Right here will be the 6mm joint, and here will be the 10mm joint. These are using the exact same amount of flour in them. It's a 0.4 in each. You can see that the 6mm looks like a nice joint, maybe a little bit small, but you definitely smoke that. Whereas the 10mm one, you're going to take 1 or 2 drags and it's going to be completely finished. Whilst I definitely think the flavour on the 8mm tip and higher is certainly a lot better than the 6mm, if I am smoking anything less than a 0.5, I'll typically be using the 6mm tip. Now obviously there are plenty of other things that account for whether size matters and not just how much you're using. For example, something that's very important to me is the flavour and the coolness of the smoke. Now I find with slimmer tips, the flavour is limited and it's not all the way there as if you were to use a slightly bigger tip. However, I've also found that with these bigger tips, sometimes the smoke can be a little bit warmer, especially getting down to the last little bits of your joint when you are trying to savour as much as possible. With those bigger roaches, I feel like the heat coming off the smoke is a little bit higher than if I was to use a smaller roach. Now, one reason for this could be the size. You can see here, comparing the 6mm and the 8mm tip, the 6mm tip is ever so slightly longer. Now this allows the smoke just to cool down that bit more before it reaches your lungs, and then therefore your smoke in turn turns out to be a little bit smoother as well. Especially towards the end of the joint is where I find these glass tips come in most handy. When you're getting down to the roach and you've got those last little hits left, but you want to savour every moment and every single taste from the joint. So I feel like these glass tips, especially these smaller, maybe 8-9mm sizes, are great for making sure that you can taste your flour all the way down to the last hit. Another key aspect that you want to look out for is how easy it is to clean. With one of these tips, you can literally find a little pot like this, pop it in with some iso, put the lid on and give it a shake, and before you know it, it'll be clean. However, with some slightly thinner, maybe more complex tips, similar to this one, they do have little grooves that can get dirty if they're not cleaned properly. One of my favourite tips to use is this 6mm one. It just means that I don't have to roll up a big joint every time I want to have a smoke. I can appreciate the flavour and the smoke of a nice strain without having to use a lot of it. And as well, they're super easy and convenient to use. You literally just smoke with it, pop it in one of those pots, give it a shake and use it. Now, I also really am enjoying this 9mm that I've got recently. This is by Dank Tip, and if I remember, I will leave the link in the description. But this is one of my favourites. The smoke from it is beautiful, and I think the cooling aspect, even in compared to the 8mm, is a lot better. Now, are you really going to notice that big of a difference between these two sizes? Not really, but it's just those minute flavours that you might get from one size or another size that really do make an impact on a joint. In my opinion anyway, I'm always chasing that flavour over the high. That's why you'll very rarely see me use a cardboard roach anymore. I just think the flavour that comes off of a glass tip is so much more enhanced in compared to a cardboard roach that I'll never really switch back unless I'm in a situation where I don't have any glass tips available. I'd also love to know what you think about using glass tips. Do you use them? If so, what size do you use? And if you don't use them, why not? So, does size matter? Well, actually, yeah, it does, depending on what your end goal is. If your goal is to just try a little bit of weed, enjoy the flavour and have a nice smoke, then maybe a 6mm tip would be perfect for you. Otherwise, if you are trying to roll them super thick, heady joints, then yeah, a 10mm, even upwards to a 12-13mm might be more your style. I know this has been a super short video today and I do apologise for that, but there should be an extra video uploaded about Wednesday next week, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled. Other than that, if you've enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like and a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.